Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Russia's President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping discuss ties with US President Donald Trump, also deliberate on Ukraine war and Taiwan. Trump's bid to end birthright citizenship challenged in court by 22 Democratic-led states. UN Chief Guterres flags threat of climate crisis and AI at World Economic Forum in Davos. India's Union Cabinet approves continuation of National Health Mission for another 5 years to deliver accessible, affordable, quality healthcare services. US President Donald Trump began his first full day in office attending a prayer service at the Washington National Cathedral on Tuesday and got a sermon, an appeal to protect immigrants and respect gay rights, a day after declaring in his inauguration speech that there were only two genders in America and signing executive orders to crack down on immigrants. Episcopal Bishop Marian Edgar Budd pleaded with Trump from the pulpit to show mercy on people who were scared of what is to come.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives.
Meanwhile, Democratic-led states and civil rights groups have filed several lawsuits challenging US President Donald Trump's bid to roll back birthright citizenship on Tuesday in an early bid by his opponents to block his agenda in the court. 22 Democratic-led states, along with District of Columbia and City of San Francisco, filed a pair of lawsuits in federal courts in Boston and Seattle, asserting Trump had violated the U.S. Constitution. The lawsuits take aim at the central piece of Trump's sweeping immigration crackdown. California Attorney General Rob Bonta addressed a news conference on Tuesday in San Francisco, expressing his disappointment.
I am deeply disappointed that we're here one day into the new administration, and also not at all surprised. In the hours after President Trump was sworn into office, he issued an onslaught of disastrous and damaging executive orders, including one that seeks to end birthright citizenship.
And United States longtime allies are reacting sharply over President Donald Trump's decision affecting bilateral relations. From trade policies to territorial issues and immigration, leaders from various countries are expressing skepticism about the direction of Trump's administration is going to take.
January 20th marked the day Donald Trump officially took office as the 47th President of the United States, but for many foreign leaders, the event was met with trepidation. Trump's announcement to impose China with a 10% punitive duty on its imports has also raised Beijing's eyebrows. In retaliation, China vowed to defend national interests and said that there are no winners in a trade war or a tariff war. On the other hand, Trump's administration might also hit the European Union with tariffs. Trump also signaled to hit Canada and Mexico with 25% punitive tariffs. While Canada pledged robust and rapid and measured pushback, Mexico urged calm in the face of Trump's trade threats that risk throwing their economies into disarray. The punitive tariffs against the United States' two major trading partners could come as early as February 1. Germany's conservative opposition leader Friedrich Merz, frontrunner in the polls, to become the next chancellor, urged a united European stance in talks with President Trump. Whereas German Chancellor Olaf Scholz hoped for the United States to continue to be its closest ally outside Europe, Scholz also noted that Trump and his administration will keep the world on tenterhooks in the coming years.
The United States is our closest ally outside Europe. I will do everything I can to ensure that it stays that way. Our first discussion with President Trump and the contacts between our advisors point in this direction. Trump and his administration will keep the world on tenterhooks in the coming years in energy and climate policy, in trade policy, in foreign and security policy. But we can and will deal with all of this.
Trump 2.0 has begun with a bold start, but whether these orders mark a golden age for America remains to be seen. Bureau Report, DD India.
And as Donald Trump takes office the second time, European leaders are preparing for what another Trump administration could mean. Joining us with more is DW correspondent Emily Leshner in Berlin. Emily, Trump has already signed nearly 80 executive orders since taking office. It shows that he's intent on making the changes that he promised while campaigning. What has been the reaction from the EU to the swiftness of his policy changes?
Yes, you're right. He certainly has wasted no time in following through on some of his campaign promises, like pulling the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Agreement. So there is a real concern in Europe that he's going to go ahead with some of the other promises he's made, some of which would have a direct and an immediate impact on Europe, like his promise of increasing tariffs from 10 to 20% on goods coming from the EU. And for the German car industry, for example, this would be pretty devastating. The auto sector here is already struggling because of high labor and energy costs and stiff competition from China. It's teetering at the edge of survival, and it's unclear if it can survive another blow like the tariffs would be. But on the other side, the fear that Trump will follow through has had a really interesting effect on EU leaders. In the past couple of days, there have been several leaders who have been calling for reform across the EU. Both the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen spoke at the World Economic Forum in Davos, saying that now was the time for Europe to band together, to reform and reinvest. And Scholz is traveling to France today to meet with Macron to chart this new path forward and to prepare for the next 4 years.
Right. And what happens next to these countries affected by Trump's policies? In a sense, what options do they have?
Well, I think, there isn't a country that won't be affected, even if it's indirectly by Trump's policies, or at the very least, the ripple effect of Trump's policies. But for countries that are targeted specifically by Trump, like Germany, where I am, there are really two options. One is to lay as much regulatory groundwork as possible, and the other is simply to wait. So let's take Trump's threat to put 10 to 20% tariffs on EU goods as an example. If he does do this, it would be devastating to the auto sector, and it would be quite a big blow because it could incentivize German companies to move to the U.S. So right now, German leaders like Economy Minister Robert Habeck, they're calling for reforms that would make German and other European economies good places to run a business, to set a stage that is advantageous for companies to keep conducting business in the bloc. And Ursula von der Leyen announced that the EU Commission would also be unveiling proposals soon that would help do this, do things like bring down energy prices and increase domestic investment to streamline markets in Europe. So while EU leaders just need to wait to take their next cue from Trump, they can also start laying some groundwork for what they think, will happen in the next a few years. And, tariffs on goods would make things very expensive for U.S. consumers. So it's possible that this is just an empty threat and just a bargaining tactic from Trump. That's why it's just too early for the EU to make any real moves like threaten their own set of retaliatory tariffs. It seems from statements from EU officials in the past few days that the EU knows it needs to be as proactive as possible to continue to be competitive. It just can't afford to only sit back and wait. So it has to lay some groundwork while it can.
Emily, thank you for those updates. Donald Trump has also indicated that he may impose fresh sanctions on Russia if President Putin refuses to negotiate a deal to end the conflict in Ukraine. Trump made these remarks while talking to media at the White House. However, the US president gave no details on possible additional sanctions. Trump also said his administration was looking at the issue of sending weapons to Ukraine, adding his view that the European Union should be doing more to support Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russia's President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping discussed on Tuesday how to build ties with US President Donald Trump. Prospects for a peace deal to end the conflict in Ukraine and Moscow's firm support for Beijing's position on Taiwan. Xi and Putin, who spoke for an hour and 35 minutes by video call after Trump was sworn in as US President on Monday, proposed a further deepening of strategic partnership between their countries. As per Kremlin foreign policy aide Yuri Ushakov in Moscow, Xi and Putin have indicated a willingness to build relations with the United States on a mutually beneficial, mutually respectful basis if the Trump team really shows interest in this. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar attended the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting in Washington, D.C. Along with his counterparts from Australia, Japan and the United States. Member nations underlined the priority Quad has in foreign policy and held discussions on wide-ranging dimensions, ensuring a free, open, stable and prosperous Indo-Pacific. The meeting sends a clear message that in an uncertain and volatile world, the Quad will continue to be a force for global good. This was the first Quad Foreign Ministers meeting just next day after Donald Trump took over the presidency of the US. The next Quad Leader Summit will be held in India. The joint statement by the Quad leaders stressed on their strong opposition to any unilateral actions that seek to change the status quo by force or coercion. Quad leaders agreed to reaffirm shared commitment to strengthening free and open Indo-Pacific, where the rule of law, democratic values, sovereignty, territorial integrity are upheld and defended. It also said Quad nations maintain the conviction that international law, economic opportunity, peace, stability and security in all domains, including maritime domain, underpin the development and prosperity of peoples of the Indo-Pacific. It said Quad nations are committed to strengthening regional maritime, economic and technological security in the face of increasing threats, as well as promoting reliable and resilient supply chains. In South Korea, suspended President Yoon Suk-yeol continued to refuse being interrogated by the Corruption Investigation Office. On Wednesday, the state anti-corruption watchdog leading the joint investigation into impeached President Yoon failed for a third time for questioning. Investigators from the Corruption Investigation Office arrived in morning at Sool Detention Center in Ulwang, where Yoon is being held. However, investigators left empty-handed in the afternoon after Yoon refused to submit to questioning. A fire at a ski resort hotel in Turkey's Bolu Mountains killed 76 people, injured dozens, forcing panicked guests to jump out of the windows in the middle of the night. Turkish President Erdogan declared a day of mourning for victims of the fiery fire that occurred in a resort on Wednesday. Authorities are conducting DNA tests to identify some of the bodies recovered from the scene of the fire. Recalling the horror incident, some witnesses said no fire alarms went off, nor were there any fire escapes at the hotel.
Through the window, of course, you could see the flames. However, someone threw himself out from the front where the building was on fire.
Of course, the mounting conditions were a bit difficult around 4:30. We could see that the fire brigade evacuated 7-8 rooms by putting a ladder for the people staying on that side. But other than that, when the fire intensified, they started to take us away. We could not see much. We tried to help guests who came to our hotel.
Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. Over 400 migrants reached the Canary Islands on Tuesday. 67 arrived on a wooden boat in Gran Canaria, while at least 350 landed on the island of El Hierro. These arrivals add to the ongoing influx of Spain's autonomous region of the Canary Islands. primarily from West African countries, which saw a record 46,843 arrivals last year. A UAE-based company converts food waste into biofuel and alternative protein using insects. The process helps to recycle and reduce food waste, as well as creating an alternative and sustainable source of power. This initiative could contribute to tackling a global environment problem. A popular mobile application called Jagat, offering users a chance to win real money by finding coins hidden in real-world locations, has sparked controversy in Thailand, with reports of disruptive behavior and concerns over safety. Several incidents causing concern among local residents and businesses have been reported. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. World Bank appointed neutral expert backs India's stand on dispute with Pakistan regarding Indus Water Treaty. And world number one, Sinner storms into Australian Open semi-finals in style, sets up clash with Shelton on Friday.
This week on Defense Dynamics, explore the Indian Army's game-changing all-terrain vehicles, including amphibious JSW, Gecko and Polaris ATVs. Also, what makes the Rafale marine fighter jets a transformative asset for the Indian Navy. Discover how INS Mumbai's participation in exercise La Perouse strengthens India's maritime strategy. Learn why Armenia's choice of India's Trajan artillery system signals a shift in defense partnerships. Watch Defense Dynamics at 8 p.m. IST, Wednesday, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. World leaders gathered in Switzerland's Davos as World Economic Forum entered its third day on Wednesday. The forum is a 5-day event and is being held from January 20th to 24th. Addressing the conference, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said climate crisis and an unlimited expansion of artificial intelligence, AI, could be existential threat for humanity. At the World Economic Forum on Tuesday, Ukrainian President Zelensky said at least 200,000 European peacekeepers would be needed to avoid any further escalation in conflict with Russia after any ceasefire deal.
From all the Europeans,
200,000, it's a minimum. It's a minimum. Otherwise, it's nothing. Otherwise, it's something, like somebody, like we had OSCE, and nobody knew where they can help you. They had offices, and that's all.
India has welcomed the decision of World Bank appointed neutral expert to address certain issues related to projects under the Indus Waters Treaty 1960. The Ministry of External Affairs on Tuesday, in an official statement, shared that the neutral expert announced his competence to address differences between India and Pakistan relegated to Kishanganga and Ratal hydroelectric projects in Jammu and Kashmir. India reiterated it will continue to participate in the neutral expert process so that differences are resolved in a manner consistent with provisions of the treaty. The MEA also said India does not recognize or participate in court of arbitration proceedings in the matter, citing provisions of the treaty that do not provide for parallel proceedings on the same set of issues. Minister of Ports, Shipping and Waterways Sarbananda Sonowal inaugurated the Maritime India Conference and Expo 2025 on Wednesday in Mumbai city of the western state of Maharashtra. The 3-day event is being held on the theme Transforming India's Logistics, Capacity Building and Self-Sufficiency. The Maritime Conference and Exhibition offers the industry insiders a dynamic platform for collaboration and growth. Addressing a keynote, the minister highlighted the importance of maritime sector.
परम आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में हमारे पोर्ट शिपिंग वाटरवेज इस सेक्टर को जो बढ़वा मिली है, जो विशेष मान्यता मिली है, इसके वजह से पिछले 10 साल के अंदर देश में विकास की गति बढ़ने लगी और पोर्ट शिपिंग वाटरवेज ने भी तरक्की करने लगे।
India's Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal addressed a press conference on Wednesday where he briefed the media about key decisions taken by India's Union Cabinet. Minister Goyal stated that Cabinet has approved the minimum support price of raw jute for 2025-26 marketing season at Rs 5,650 per quintal. Yes, more.
2025-26 के सीजन के लिए रॉ जूट की एमएसपी इसी आधार पर लगभग 6% बढ़ाई गई है। अब वो 5,650 रुपए प्रति क्विंटल रहेगी, जो लागत मूल्य से लगभग 67% ज्यादा है।
Minister Goyal also stated that Union Cabinet has approved the continuation of National Health Mission for another 5 years. Under this mission, India's Ministry of Health and Family Welfare provides financial and technical support to states and union territories, enabling them to deliver accessible, affordable, accountable and effective health care up to district hospitals, particularly for vulnerable sections of the population.
5 साल के लिए नेशनल हेल्थ मिशन को आगे कंटिन्यू करने का आज अहम फैसला कैबिनेट ने लिया है। लगभग 12 लाख हेल्थ केयर के वर्कर्स 2021 से 22 के बीच में नेशनल हेल्थ मिशन के साथ जुड़े और इसी मिशन के तहत कोविड की बड़ी लड़ाई में भारत में एक विश्व स्तर पे जिसको माना गया है एक अहम लड़ाई लड़ी गई। 220 करोड़ से अधिक कोविड वैक्सीन के डोजेस और पूरी के पूरे डिजिटल कनेक्टिविटी के साथ, डिजिटल लॉगिन के साथ 220 करोड़ से अधिक कोविड-19 के वैक्सीन डोजेस देश भर में दिए गए।
The Indian Army is steadily enhancing its global footprint, not just by securing the nation's borders, but also by contributing to peacekeeping efforts worldwide. This Republic Day, Indian Army will showcase its technological prowess and operational readiness by featuring both versions of the quick response vehicles in Tripurantak, the Republic Day parade. DD India correspondent Vishal Baristo brings us more.
Now this is Tripurantak, which is Quick Reaction Force Vehicle Medium. Tripurantak has a mythological name, and I have with me the contingent commander Srishti Sharma. She is major in the Indian Army. Let's talk to her and find out. Quick Reaction Force, what is the use of it?
Quick Reaction Force vehicle is a specialized mobility vehicle which provides movement and mobility to our Indian troops so that they can be deployed in any conflict-related situation and carry out their task effectively. It is a very strong and invincible vehicle.
Since you've spoken about the international standards, do we have this vehicle abroad also as part of UN peacekeeping force?
Yes, as rightly brought out. This vehicle was inducted in Indian Army in 2022, and recently this year these vehicles are being inducted and deployed in United Nations peacekeeping operations. In an international forum, it is showcasing our digital prowess and the technological advancement that we are making, as well as our contribution to global peace, because our soldiers fighting there with our own vehicles is a matter of pride and a great sense of achievement. Lebanon is the first country that this vehicle is being deployed. We have our Indian Army groups in countries like Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, Abyei, which are difficult terrains and conflict situations. However, our country is making us proud there, not just fighting for our own people, but working towards a global peace.
Okay, one last question. As a lady officer, how much proud do you feel because you'll be there on the Kartavya path, and there's a lot of talk about women empowerment?
Yes, I am very proud. It is once in a lifetime achievement thing that I feel, because we are commissioned by the President, and to stand here and give a salute to her on the saluting dais is a great responsibility, because on those few seconds all the eyes are on you, and it's a matter of great pride.
So there you heard very proud Major Srishti. She is a third generation soldier, and hopefully the tradition continues. With cameraman Vinay in Delhi, this is Vishal Baristo for DD India.
Let's talk about sports. Ben Shelton defeated Italy's Lorenzo Sonego in an entertaining clash at the Australian Open on Wednesday to reach his first semi-final. Shelton had the edge over his unseeded Italian opponent for the first 2 sets. However, Sonego refused to lie down and won the third set before Shelton reasserted himself to win the fourth set of a tiebreak. Shelton is the only American left in the men's singles draw after Taylor Fritz and Tommy Paul faced elimination earlier in the tournament. Meanwhile, Italy's Yannick Sinner eased past Alex de Minaur 6-3, 6-2, 6-1 in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open at the Rod Laver Arena. The world number one will clash with Ben Shelton in the semi-finals on Friday. Cities across China are dazzling with giant lanterns display, drawing crowds of visitors to celebrate the festive atmosphere ahead of the Spring Festival, the country's most important annual celebration. This year, the Spring Fest falls on January 29th. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.